we're improving our athletes' general abilities to get through the rigors of the season. We call this process cyclical homeostasis. So homeostasis is a term from biology, medicine, and that's saying that your body has a baseline. It's a set point. So that means that your body has this natural level it wants to be. So what do we have? We have a circadian rhythm that helps us sleep, be awake. We have a natural temperature, that our bodies typically stay at. There's a hydration status that we're comfortable at. So there's a lot of things that are stable within the body. The thing I really like to talk about with being a coach or when you're in sports or in training in general, it's almost like you're a plastic surgeon. So, a plastic surgeon, you don't like the way something looks. Or maybe something happened to you, so you go in there and get a blemish removed. Maybe you want to look a little bit better, so you have some augmentations performed, whatever. We actually are, for the lack of a better term, plastic surgeons without knives, without scalpels. Because at the end of the day, our athletes will look the same, right? So our athletes will still have the same color eye, they'll still have the same hair color, same skin color, same physique, same personality. But on the inside, we've changed them completely. Like, we have changed them completely. They are no longer the same person on the inside. Their cells have been restructured. Their bones are stronger. Their capillaries are larger. So this is cyclical homeostasis, meaning that I've taken their set point, which is where their body wants to be, we train them, and we create a new level of homeostasis. That's training. We're training what's inside the body, things that we cannot see. Unfortunately, to allow for homeostasis to occur or improvements of, we actually have to induce stress onto our athletes. So we have to put through situations that may not be fun. Practice is not supposed to be fun. Training is not supposed to be fun. However, we're here because we typically enjoy that. We're all former athletes. There was something crazy about us that made us enjoy that pain and that misery. But the thing I want you to understand here is that you induce that stress on the athlete to allow for an agreeable level of fatigue. Something that you acknowledge is going to happen. That's very important. It has to be agreeable. Now, you have to understand the stress, again, is the necessary evil. You have to provide stress on the athlete's body to allow for fatigue, to allow for cyclical homeostasis. Here is a very good definition by Anoka, and I think it was 2002 maybe. But fatigue, you're going to see a lot of variations in the definition for fatigue. But the reason I like this one is because not only is it saying that there is a reduction in the ability to perform some type of sporting movement. I think we all know that. But what he also alludes to is there is an increase in perceived effort. And I keep bringing this up, don't I? How does the athlete feel? There's one thing I do constantly, and I know it annoys my athletes, but I still do it. Everything that we do, I'm always like, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? How did that feel? It's always the same question. But that gives me feedback that I can constantly use to reshape the practice. So we have the structure on paper, but I'm always asking them, how does this feel? How did that feel? How did that make you feel? Like it's the same question, I just throw different words into it. But so Anoka is suggesting that not only can you just not work as hard as you were, but to do that same effort, you feel like you're having to really dig deep and complete that task. So that is fatigue. So with this newer definition of fatigue, it looks at the task being performed. So me sprinting is going to provide a different fatigue than me thinking, sitting at a desk, thinking about a task. Different type of fatigue, neurological or neuromuscular fatigue. You also have to understand that fatigue is based on if it's a force output or if it's more of an endurance training focus. The trained state of the athlete, are they mature? Are they healthy? Are they young? Are they a master's athlete? What is their state? Did you provide rest within the task itself? So again, you can continue to read through this, but the idea is that fatigue is very complex, and it depends on your practice regimen. And again, it depends on the athlete's readiness. So, this is kind of what we talked about. So we understand this so far. That the human body, the athlete goes into practice on day one, and they give you a certain amount of traits. Their VO2 max is 68. Their resting heart rate is 54. Or their power output is 600 watts. Or their maximum strength is 6,000 newtons. Whatever the case may be, there is that level of homeostasis that you're working with. Now, we put stress on them. No longer are they displaying that level of homeostasis. They have stressed themselves out. They are fatigued. So that's what we have seen so far. This can be described by the gas theory, general adaptation to stress. This has been around a long time. It's not necessarily perfect, but it gives you a great idea of how the body responds. This first stage is the alarm stage, and that's where an athlete goes through a stressful situation, exercise, training, and their body responds by going through fight or flight. They have to attack whatever stress that is. Okay? In stage 2 is resistance. That's when the body adapts to that. Okay, so you're going to make me run a mile at this pace. Okay, I've got to stay on that pace. Okay, I feel good. I've adapted. I can do this. All right? Stage 3 is exhaustion. That's if you continue to berate me with intensity, with stress. I no longer can respond and recover. So that would be another term for overtraining, exhaustion. That you're not giving me a time to adapt and recover, to build my defenses, my immune system, my energy systems, to continue with another endeavor later. Yeah. So that's where we talked about yesterday. Just practice, 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 practice. You're causing exhaustion. In other words, what we were looking at is the fitness fatigue curve. So again, we start off with a certain level of fitness. We as a coach understand that when we take our athletes through practice sessions, especially when we overreach, we are pulling back on the fitness they can display to us at that moment. We're okay with that. But we also have to be okay with the fact that we are going to have to let them recover to express that new level of fitness, aka cyclical homeostasis. So, these are 7 points, again, that just describe what we have done, what we are talking about. The athlete walks in the door with a set point. Things that we measure. Why do we measure that? Do we want to get too far away from that? Do we want to get worse than where we started? No. So how do you know where to go if you don't measure it? Right? Does anybody travel without a map? I mean, I can't go anywhere without 2 things. Number 1, GPS. Number 2, my wife. Because I get lost with GPS. So I need my co-pilot at all times. Yeah, I mean, it's you have to have it. I wouldn't know how to dress myself if I didn't have her. You know? Like I called her this morning, what do I wear with this sweatshirt? You know, it's insane. So that's the thing, is you have to collect this data so you know where you're going and how you're progressing, either positively or negatively. Always collect the data. So they walk in the door with a set point. They have that temporarily decline in fitness because they have gone through a practice session or a block or a training phase. They have lost that fitness momentarily. At least what they portray. It's really there, but like we said, the fatigue kind of muddies the water and you can't see it. They can't put it into action in competition. We call that fatigue. When we have the fatigue, we put in recovery methods, whatever you have access to. The recovery methods allow for you to accommodate, meaning I can get back to where I was and maybe above that. We call that supercompensation. Supercompensation means I've recovered fully, but I'm also better than I was. I like to call that a new set frame. So now you have established a new level of homeostasis. Because we're talking about training an athlete is all what happens on the inside of the body, what happens inside a cell. That's all it is. Now here's an example of having a pre-measurement and a post-measurement after we provide a stimulus onto an athlete. So this is a case study done on an isometric mid-dipole. Again, the video I will show you, it's what we call the peak power position in weightlifting. So it's where the bar is at right before you start extension. So this was on a senior national team luge athlete, so one of our top doubles athletes. It goes without mention that he is a trained athlete, well trained. We took him through an overreaching block. So he needed to be about 5 to 6 kilograms heavier than he was entering this season. So at this point, instead of doing like a 3x10, we looked at the fact that he needed to be bigger. So we did 3 sets of 10 the first week, 5 sets of 10 the second week. So we even overreached in an overreaching block. Because strength endurance by definition is overreaching. We went 3x10, 5x10, 4x10, 3x10. Something I typically don't do, but we needed to do something to grow muscle in this gym. At that point, we also said because he's doing so much volume, he's not going to be able to produce much power. Velocity of movement is going to be shot. We don't even need to try to do that. So what we did is, again, anything that, like a push press, out. Med ball throws, gone. Sprinting, no. Anything beyond weightlifting, out the window. So we just pressed, we squatted, and we lifted 2 to 3 times a day. I mean, he was in the weight room every day, all day. And so, did he gain size? Yes. Did he lose some qualities in the short term? Yes. But what's really interesting is because I knew what was going to happen, and I trusted the process, and I have science to guide me and testing to make sure we're staying on the right path, we saw supercompensation occur. So he entered in, so this is January of this year, 2012. His mean strength was 4,129 newtons. So if you want to get kilograms, divide that number by 9.81. And that'll give you how strong he is in kilograms. So 4,000 newtons. It took him roughly about 2.5 seconds to get to that peak strength. Mean force at 50 milliseconds. Remember, time to strike, time to sprint. 2 to 250 or 200 right here is 3,000 newtons. In luge, this is the time for them to recoil and come through. So you know, luge, they're on the handles, they go here, and then they pull. So that takes about 200 milliseconds. That's sport specific. So I need to know, am I making him stronger in the time it takes for him to pull himself down the ice? This is rate of force. What I would argue is the most important factor for sport, along with impulse. Again, these are average at best, and that's below average. Now, this was the numbers pre-stimulus. So we take him through the training block sometime in the month of April. And this is what you see. Force goes up a little bit. Mean time to force goes up a little bit. But this is what's scary right here. And you can see I've got double negatives or positive. Right here at rate of force development in 50 and 90 seconds, his rate of force drops by more than half. So he got really slow. Really slow. That means that his fiber typology shifted from like 2x to 2a to 1. He was very fatigued as well. So I had him do a lot of volume. Remember I said he was doing 3 sets of 10 to 5 sets of 10, doubles in the weight room, triple sessions in the weight room, no rate of force development activities. So you would expect his speed to go down. Now if I didn't know any better, I would freak out. Right? So, but we followed up that block with a traditional training program. We dropped him down to 5s. We added med ball throws in. We added more rate of force producing activities. And because we invested in strength training in that block, to focus mostly on strength endurance and increasing his size. After he came out of the fatigue, and after he was re-engaged with rate of force movements or explosive movements, look what happened at the end of May. So this is only 20 days later. His strength went up over 1,000 newtons. But this is where you've got to really be surprised. His rate of force, how fast he produces that force, look, it tripled, it quadrupled. It went from 7,000 to 28,000 in 50 milliseconds. It went from 9,000 to 27,000, and look, he's above average now, 9,000 to 13,000 at 200 milliseconds. That would not have happened if I didn't invest and pull back a little bit. Now he's elite. You know what I'm saying? I know these numbers don't mean anything to you because we're like one of only 2 places in this country that actually do this test. And there's probably 20 places in the world that actually do a similar type of test. But this is like, we say 15,000 newtons per second squared is fast. It's good enough to be a good athlete. If you're close to 30,000, it's something you're special, right? So,
just let me understand. In you have like, what size did you keep? What size, like in weight? How big when you were given the ratio of 3 to 5, 5 to 5? You see when you was up in no medicine ball, no speed work. Did he get bulky or what?
No, because the kid is, so he's a top man in luge. So in luge, the top man is the guy that drives.
Okay.
And so they have to be very aerodynamic. So the bottom man, the person on the bottom of so it's sled, man, man. So the person on the bottom has to be short and narrow and a little bit heavy because they're weighing the sled down. So the top man is typically long. And so they have to be pretty narrow as well to be aerodynamic. So they're here, like this, and they're on top of somebody else, so they're kind of like this. I couldn't have him get very big and bulky. But the guy's like 6'3", 6'4". I mean, he's got size 15 feet. So we put 6 to 7 kilos on this kid within basically a block. But it was very good because it was distributed. I mean, that was the goal. Was like, I didn't want to just have this big chest where he couldn't.
But that kind of just, you guys, what I've just from yesterday, from last night, with your basically training, you promote a lot of, in the early period, you promote a lot of strength training. And then you take the other aspect of the other component of training, like speed, and incorporate it after you build up that level of strength in the individual. So that is your basic. That's where you deal with it.
Yeah, typically what I do is, let's say if it's a complete athlete, like a sprinter, right? You can't get away from speed development. The difference here is this is a luge athlete. So they never run. They don't do any, the only thing they do explosive is pull themselves off the handles. So, but I knew that his speed wasn't his issue, off the handles. And it's not neurologic. His fact is they had to wear a lot of lead in their suit to weigh them down because he and his partner never met competition weight. So they was actually having to wear weighted vests, put things on their sled, and that's actually not good for drag.
Well, I'm looking at it. The client says like from training a shop with it.
Yeah.
Use the same concept that he used.
Yep.
For the first block, the first stage, we I train him up with them some reform, to build him up. And then a little later on in the training segment, incorporate the med ball to get the speed and the explosiveness. And it makes a lot of sense in that sense. In that way, just looking at it. So I've got a picture how you will change the picture of the athlete. How you look in that sense within that period. And then I just say that you know the outcome of the training to your science. So then I could incorporate some maybe triple jump or some vertical jumps in the next block so that I could get that explosiveness. Because what we try to do sometimes I do for myself, the aspect of strength that we didn't have that gym to do, the ability of the gym to get that strength that we needed. So we base our training on this technique, another medicine ball, and basic sucking. So I'm grasping the whole importance of the strength to the gym and the basic general strength in the first aspect of it so that the athletes could produce. better results.
Yeah, for a thrower, I think I would see this working for a thrower. Like for a thrower, even when I was coaching track full time, throwers, we spent a lot of time working on pure strength development. And in that time, you know, it's hard for them to go out and throw, you know, because one thing that we do a lot of is what we would call potentiation, where you throw a heavy weight, or maybe you've got the indoor weight and then you throw the hammer, or maybe you throw the men's competition hammer followed by the light hammer. And so what that does is that allows for more velocity, but none of that works if you don't spend time early in the season developing pure strength. And so we also know that, and we don't have the specific number one reason, but we also know throwers who have more mass are better throwers. You know, it's because you can counterbalance the mass of the ball. And so that's where like the strength endurance block is very important for a thrower. And what we did is typically we would just do more technique work, like, you know, maybe medicine ball throws, or maybe just working on our turns, or like for jab throwers, like for me personally, it was just a lot of like, you know, 1-step, 2-step, or maybe even like those what we call knot balls.
Yeah.
You know, just to work on form, just to get our technique down. So. Test. So what we get that we get it because as soon as they step on the platform and as soon as they initiate, it starts a clock on the computer. So we can go on the computer and every millisecond has a data point. So it's like through the second we have little marks, and we can say, okay, at 22 milliseconds they produced this much power, this much force, this. And so we just have a software system that was created for us that allows me to, it just keeps it. But I mean, that's the thing, is like you can, with cameras now, there's like for iPhones, I don't know how many people have iPhones, but I think they work for other companies too. But there's something called Excelade. It's like EXCELADE. And it's a software that allows you to videotape your athletes, and it plays it back in slow motion on your phone. And you can actually get milliseconds. So you can actually count how long it takes for you to do something. Plus, you can draw on it, and it gets angles.
Just Brad, when they were in Colorado Springs, Joseph Escoda from CAR in Spain is going to be giving a presentation on mobile technologies. So video, things with an iPad, iPhone, Droids, when you're away from your communication, if your athlete's away, things that you can do immediately, low expense technology, especially video technology and conferencing.
Gotcha.
So
good to know. Yeah, because we can. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way, but that's just how we. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, without access to the sort of testing you're looking at here, for example, if I'm looking at that strike force, so time motion is possibly the best alternative for measuring how long they take to get from point A to point B with the slow motion camera.
Yep.
So then I can then develop the program and then reassess on that time motion to see if that has improved.
It's a
less accurate
way to do it, but it's the same thing, and you'll get the same data.
But that's the thing, because I obviously we won't have access to. Fencing has access to very little, but without having access to the technology to do this kind of testing, a video camera is something I can get access to.
Yep, and it works.
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, I went most of my career without this stuff, and I still was able to have pretty good success. So you don't need it.
Yeah,
it's just
I'm just looking
you have it.
Yeah, what the potential alternative is for application.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm going to trust you using these courses on my sport. I'd like to make a connection with my sport. I want to improve my power. Tennis, in volleyball, whatever. So I must start with strength endurance, breathe, the muscles, tempo slow. And it will fit the power. I make some tests like this. But I will be trusting you that will benefit later. Like
later.
what, like yesterday we say the steps, strength endurance, strength endurance. You know the tempo 216. Then we go to maximum. Then we go to the power. We'll improve the power.
Yes. What can happen is if you don't invest, like I said, you can go to power early on, but you're going to hit your ceiling is going to be lower.
Let's say the set point is not too long.
Yeah. You hit here, you stay there. Plus, another side of that too is when you taper, you get into competition. Those people that don't invest in the general training or the strength blocks, they actually lose their taper faster. So my athletes may be able to hold on to a taper up to 21 days, where your athletes may last 12 days. So, and that's very important, let's say, when we get in a tournament play, where you've got match to match, rest, match to match.
What about this? You can do modeling, like go back to the general and use some weightlifting
Yes.
modeling.
Yes.
You can do that. It's a long period of competition. Yeah?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why.
So it's an art. Yeah. So, like you said before, it's art for you as a coach to choose the best tools that you can raise your performance.
During a tournament, well, in the tournament itself, the competitions are the high days. So that there's nothing you can do in practice that can match what they do in competition. And so, what you do at that point is you just manage them on the days off. Like that's where you do video review. That's where you do like technique work. That's where you just have them move, like basically warm up, and then that's it. Stretch. Just make sure that they're good. In tournament play, sometimes what we also want to think about too is that once you get into competition, and especially a major competition like a tournament, you're done. You're done. There is nothing you can do during that time that's going to impact your athlete's physical abilities. Well, I mean, you can make it worse, but you can actually go and sit on the couch and play on your phone. There's just not much you can do. And a lot of coaches will, like they have, let's say, a tournament, or you see this a lot. Like I've been around some pretty bad basketball players, or not players, but coaches, and it's like they're in a tournament, and then they get mad because they didn't do something, so they spend 45 minutes after the game working on rebound drills, and you're like, what are you doing? And then they want to know why they were out the next game. And I'm like,
competition only just warming up. Like only this what you can, and repeating just very simple things. Otherwise, you will put more pressure on the players and all the muscles. So as you said yesterday, human body, we have to relax from the physically, mentally, and also the stress, all these things. And this, if you put pressure, it will be opposite.
During long season, don't they keep don't they do the weight?
oh yeah, your athletes should be lifting weights. I mean, my athletes lift the day of competition. Like we don't stop lifting weights. And I always keep going back to that. I love weightlifting. I'm always going to keep using an example. You lift weights for competition. You lift weights the day before competition. That's like, and they go for a maximum or above maximum in competition. Like weightlifting it's when you get away from it, then you go back to it, that's when everybody's sore and it really causes fatigue. But if you constantly lift weights, it can actually make your competitions better. Like there's these anecdotal stories you hear about Donovan Bailey at the track, at the games, doing cleans and squats, maybe like 3 sets of 1 with his max before he got on the starting line for the 100-meter dash. Yes, that's what we do. Like, for instance, this year at Bobsled World Championships, we travel with a weight. We travel with squat stands, a bar, bumpers, and my athletes, right before they get on the starting line, are doing very heavy squats, coupled with squat jumps with maybe 20 to 40 kilos, and then they go push the bobsled. And guess what? Like I said, we won worlds. That's what we do. We understand that potentiation, and that's something that we can talk about. Potentiation is weightlifting. It's fatigue, but it causes something to happen inside the cell, namely calcium release to allow for you to actually produce higher velocities within 20 minutes of that weightlifting activity. It's really cool how that works. So, but if I stop lifting weights once competition rolls around, I can't potentiate. I can only go out there and do what I do off the warm-up. And everybody else they've got an upper hand on me right now. So, I mean, weightlift, I mean, it's, yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's part of that psychology. Like if I'm an athlete and I know I'm still strong, it's, I mean, all we're doing is we're building peacetime army, right? Like we really are. Once we go to the games or international competition, it's like the military. We're fighting each other. This is peacetime right now. But our athletes are warriors. And when we go to the games, I want my athletes to have that mental edge. And so if they can walk in there and know that they're stronger than your athletes, when they go and they see your athletes, they're smelling blood. And that's what I like. I get a kick off it. Is when my athletes know that they go, everybody else is my meal. I'm going to eat your athlete, I'm going to eat that, I'm going to eat you, I've got you. And that comes from being strong. Every test. I mean, any test that you do, like I said, a vertical jump, if their vertical jump starts going down, you can easily say, you got to lift weights. Like, it's up to the coach to be able to, a lot of people, even like top athletes, we talked about, like older athletes, top athletes, like, I can get away with not doing this today. That's where you got to be able to say, you're not, you're not LeBron James. You're not this person. You're not, Derek Jeter. Like, you can be finished.
Should we start thinking that then different ways before a competition without doing such tests before having them like cut down what we actually
Yeah, I mean, I like, you can start lifting weights whenever. I mean, if I just like to start off the training with testing, so I know baseline when they walk off the streets, what are they capable of? And then every 4 weeks they improve, and it feeds into they like to see those numbers. Athletes are ego-driven. Like, we all are ego-driven, right? We like to be able to say our athletes are fast, our athletes are strong, we coach so-and-so to this level. We have an ego. And so our athletes are the same way. So if they see these numbers from testing, they're going to be like, I want to improve that again. So then they go and work harder in the weight room. Then they go pull. And then it's like, yes, I improved. What are you pulling? 4,000 newtons. I got you. Let me pull again. Boom. And so then the testing actually, what I like about it is because even these crazy numbers that don't mean anything, really, to that, to them, it causes competition. Like I literally have, 30 to 35 bobsled athletes right now competing in these numbers that they have no clue what a newton is. And they're trying to fight to have the highest newtons. And I'm like, have you ever taken physics before, guys? No. Then what do you know what you're doing? It doesn't matter, I just want to be the highest. So, that's the thing, is like these kids are training so hard, and a lot of it's because, they're on Facebook, they tweet, and they're like, I pulled 6,000 newtons, and the other guy's like, whatever. And I think it's hilarious that they do this. But whatever, it's making us good. So,
conducting this kind of test, what use of
yes.
you mentioned yesterday that we come from cases where we have access to such things. What do you do about this?
And that's where
For you said you make testing. How do we go about doing that?
So that's where we're going to go at the end of this. Like, I'm going to show you what it can be like, and then we're going to talk about what it is like. So we'll get there.
One question, in your opinion, you said when you go to the tournament, you've done what you've done, training and everything.